the James Gang was a rock band formed in Cleveland, Ohio in 1966. The band enjoyed moderate success with the singles Funk No. 49 and Walk Away, and are perhaps best remembered as the first popular band to feature the guitarist-vocalist Joe Walsh, who later became a member of the Eagles. History. Drummer Jim Fox first played with the Cleveland area band The Outsiders but left them in 1965 to attend college. After they scored a national hit the following year with Time Won't Let Me, Fox returned temporarily to play with them after their other drummer was drafted. After leaving them to return to school once again, Fox, heavily influenced by the sound of British outfits, such as the Beatles, The Who, the Yardbirds, began to think about forming his own band, teaming up with schoolmate Ronnie Silverman, bassist Tom Criss and keyboardist Phil Giallombardo. Reportedly, it was Silverman who suggested their name, James Gang. The James Gang's earliest lineup consisted of drummer Fox, Tom Criss, Ronnie Silverman, Phil Giallombardo and, after auditioning some 25 candidates for lead guitar, the band decided to go with Greg Grandillo, who was quickly replaced by Dennis Chandler and then by a guitarist who was simply known as Mouse. But Fox was still not entirely happy with the lineup. A short time later, Fox was invited to auditions for a 9-piece rhythm and blues outfit that was being assembled. Fox initially declined the offer but changed his mind when he heard the local guitar legend Glenn Schwartz, who was fresh out of the Army, was to be in attendance. After hearing Schwartz play and hearing that two of his influences were the Spencer Davis Group and Jeff Beck, Fox was knocked out and invited Schwartz to join the James Gang. Mouse, however, was not as enthused about Glenn's playing as Fox was and left the gang right then and there. Ronnie Silverman soon departed as well to enter the military. Bill Jerrick was then brought in to play alongside Schwartz. Unfortunately, no recordings were ever released by any of these early lineups of the band. Around Christmas time of 1967, Schwartz, who turned out to be a WOL from the Army and was breaking up with his wife, decided to leave the band to move to California, where he ended up forming Pacific Gas and Electric. Just days later, shortly after the new year of 1968 had dawned, a friend of Schwartz's, Joe Walsh, knocked on Fox's door and asked to be given a tryout as Glenn's replacement. Walsh was accepted and the band continued as a 5-piece for a short time until Giallombardo, who was still in high school at the time, left. Jerrick and Walsh worked together on guitar parts but Jerrick ended up leaving as well in the spring of 1968. He was then replaced by a returning Ronnie Silverman, who had been discharged from the military. In May 1968, the group played a concert in Detroit at Motown's Grand Ballroom opening for Cream. At the last minute, Silverman informed the others that he would not be joining them at the show. The band, desperately in need of the money, took to the stage as a trio. They liked their sound as a threesome and decided to remain that way. In 1968 the band signed with manager Mark Barger, who was handling the career of a fellow Ohio outfit the Lemon Pipers, who had just scored a big hit with Green Tambourine. Barger put the gang in touch with ABC Records staff producer Bill Simcock, who signed them to ABC's new Bluesway Records subsidiary in January 1969. In March 1969 the band, now consisting of Fox, Criss and Walsh and produced by Simcock, released its debut LP, Your Album. Later in 1969, the group's producer, Simcock, was music coordinator for the George Englund movie Zachariah, based on the novel Siddhartha by writer Hermann Hesse. Simcock arranged for the band to appear in the movie, with 2 James Gang songs, Laguna Salada, and Country Fever, also being used. For the recording of these 2 songs, vocalist Kenny Weiss was brought in as a means of allowing Walsh to focus on his guitar playing. Weiss, however, was gone by the time the group arrived in Mexico to film their scenes in the movie. Laguna Salada and Country Fever later reappeared as bonus tracks on the 2000 re-release of the James Gang Greatest Hits. In November 1969 bassist Tom Criss decided he was no longer into the music and left to be replaced by Dale Peters, who was brought in from another group called E.T. Hooley. In July 1970 the band released its second album James Gang Rides Again, which included the popular single Funk No. 49. In the spring of 1970, the band opened for The Who during a US tour, and their guitarist Pete Townshend was so impressed with them he invited the gang to open for The Who on their fall tour of the United Kingdom. In July 1971 the gang returned to tour Europe. During their heyday, the gang also shared the stage with artists like Grand Funk Railroad, Kinks, Humble Pie, Three Dog Night, Led Zeppelin and many more. But after two more albums, 1971's Thirds and the live album James Gang Live in Concert released later that same year, Walsh, who was tired of the pressure of doing the lion's share of the writing and singing and being the lone melodic instrument in the trio, left the band in December 1971 to relocate to the mountains of Colorado and eventually formed Barnstorm. Peters and Fox carried on with vocalist Roy Kenner and guitarist Domenic Truano for two albums, Straight Shooter and Passin' Through, both released in 1972. But in recent interviews, Fox stated that things didn't work out musically with Truano as hoped, so he left the band in 1973 and would subsequently join the Guess Who. Truano was replaced by future Deep Purple guitarist Tommy Bolin after Joe Walsh called to recommend him to the band. Bolin joined the gang in August 1973 and appeared on two albums, Bang! And Miami. That saw the band moving from ABC Records over to Atlantic Records' Atco label. The popularity of Bolin's previous band's effort temporarily revived the James Gang's popularity, though they were never again as big a concert attraction as they had been during Walsh's tenure. During the recording of Miami in 1974, Kenner ran into legal troubles after a drug bust and was not available for recording at first. Other singers were reportedly auditioned, but eventually Kenner was able to return to complete the album. After the record's release, a disillusioned Bolin suddenly decided to leave. He played his final show with the gang on July 27, 1974 in Waterbury, Connecticut, and left a month later to work with Dr. John and Alphonse Mouzon and attempted to form another group with future Crosby, Stills and Nash keyboardist Mike Finnegan before accepting the offer from Deep Purple in 1975. Not long after, while Fox and Peters were in England auditioning guitarists, they were visited by The Who's John Entwistle, who brought along Scottish guitarist Jimmy McCulloch, who suggested himself as Bolin's replacement, though he ultimately elected to remain with Paul McCartney and Wings. By early 1975, Fox and Peters decided to try again with a new lineup that included Fox's old friends, vocalist Bubba Keith, who had been playing out in LA with a band called Uncle Tom, and guitarist Richard Shack, who had previously played in the band E.T. Hooley with Peters. This lineup recorded the album Newborn, which featured a cover of the Elvis Presley staple Heartbreak Hotel Euro. The band released a final recording, Jesse Come Home, in February 1976. Which featured the return of early member Phil Gialombardo, who rejoined along with new guitarist-vocalist Bob Webb. Ultimately, none of the post-Walsh lineups achieved the level of success enjoyed in their heyday. Drummer Fox was the only remaining member of the original band when James Gang finally disbanded early in 1977. After James Gang broke up, drummer Fox was involved for a time with the Belkin management firm, who handled the affairs for artists like Michael Stanley Band, Wild Cherry and Donny Iris. As for other latter-day gang members, Bubba Keith went on to play for England Dan and John Ford Colley and was later the lead vocalist for Point Blank, while Bob Webb played in Jay Ferguson's band. The classic lineup of the band, consisting of Walsh, Peters and Fox, reunited to perform at an election rally for President Bill Clinton at the Cleveland State University Convocation Center on November 4, 1996. They also appeared on The Drew Carey Show in the 1998-99 season and at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Allen Theater in Cleveland for 3 shows in February 2001, joined by keyboardist Mark Ivesuk. And in the summer of 2005, the group performed another handful of shows in the Cleveland area. As of May 2004, Glenn Schwartz was playing guitar and singing Thursday nights at Major Hupple's in the Flats, Cleveland. As of 2014, Glenn continues to perform at the Beachland Ballroom in Cleveland. In April 2006, it was announced that the Walsh-Fox lineup of the group would be touring the United States later that summer, supported by keyboardist Bill Appleberry and backing vocalists Gia Sion Betty, Robin Kerms and Stacey Michelle. During this summer tour, the band appeared in August performing live on The Howard Stern Show on Sirius Satellite Radio. In March 2012, it was stated on UltimateClassicRock.com that Walsh was in the Cleveland area Lava Room recording studios with Fox and Peters, working on new recordings of their well-known James Gang tracks, with longtime friends Joe Vitale and Michael Stanley contributing. Discography, studio albums, Your Album, James Gang Rides Again, Thirds, Straight Shooter, Passin' Through, Bang, Miami, Newborn, Jesse Come Home, Live Album, James Gang Live in Concert, Compilations, The Best of featuring Joe Walsh, 16 Greatest Hits Funk No. 49, Singles, Band Members, Music Gaming. The song Funk No. 49 was made available to download on December 30, 2008, for use in the Rock Band Music Gaming platform in both basic rhythm and PRO mode, which takes advantage of the use of a real guitar/bass guitar, along with standard MIDI-compatible electronic drum kits. In June 2014, it was released for the Rocksmith guitar instruction game. References. Further reading, Wolf, Carlo. Cleveland Rock and Roll Memories. Cleveland, Ohio, Gray and Company, Publishers. ISBN 978-1-886,228-99-3, external links, James Gang website, IMDb James Gang.